Good evening, hello and welcome to the brand new Startup Central. I'm Nykaa. This is the show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups. We also celebrate entrepreneurship, talk about the latest technology, innovation, disruption, basically anything that has to do with the new economy. Folks, just a quick alert before we begin the show. Our email address on top of the screen, suc@etnow.tv. Write into us. Tell us what you want to see on the show, what you never want to see on the show. Pitch to us. Who knows, maybe one day you will be a part of the show. I'm also on Twitter. You can reach out to me directly. My Twitter handle is @Nykaa. Well, I did tell you that we talk about startups and entrepreneurs here, and today we're putting the spotlight on Nykaa. It's a homegrown e-commerce brand that was started by a mother-daughter duo. Falguni Nayar, one of India's most celebrated investment bankers, and her daughter, Adwaita Nayar. I, in fact, caught up with Adwaita Nayar at the Nykaa Lux store. Let's get to that special interview. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Startup Central. I'm Nykaa. Today coming to you from a Nykaa store. And my guest today is one of the lady bosses at Nykaa, part of the founding team, Adwaita Nayar, who's also now in charge of Nykaa Fashion. Adwaita, thanks so much for joining us here on ET Now. It's your second interview to the channel. A pleasure to have you. A beautiful store. Something that you and your mother, Falguni Nayar, actually conceptualized together. It's been a while now. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a complete delight to be back with you today. Nykaa has been just the most wonderful journey for us, incredibly fulfilling. Started in 2012 by my mother. It was her brainchild, and she did found the company. I came back from the US after my undergrad and joined her in 2013.
Yeah.
From day one, we sort of knew that we wanted to own the beauty space in India.
Okay.
So we knew we
wanted to. Do you own the beauty space?
I think right now we are the largest retailer of beauty products, but it's still day one. There's a far way to go.
So you've ruled the cosmetic world. You've painted the town red, pink, whatever you want to describe it as, and now you are doing fashion. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, beauty was in a good position, and around that time we thought about what's our next growth engine, what's our next growth avenue, and that's when we thought, fashion is an incredibly exciting space. First and foremost, it's a massive market. For every one woman who buys beauty, there are 5 to 6 women who buy fashion. If you look at the market today, it's dominated by just a handful of players. And the conversation they have is very price-led and very discount-driven. And so we really felt that there was an opportunity here to try to sell fashion in a different way. A way that is driven by inspiration, one that encourages discoverability, and really inspires the Indian woman to dress better. We're sort of trying to use the same formula we use for beauty, very content-driven, to try to sell fashion. So,
here you got your own Nykaa brand when it comes to cosmetics.
Yeah.
But for fashion, are you an aggregator? How's it working out?
In both businesses, we are first and foremost multi-brand retailers. The idea is to bring the Indian woman all sorts of choice, the best of what there is, both in India and abroad. So first and foremost, we are retailers, aggregators, and a private label strategy, if any, will come in a year or so.
So you're multi-brand retailers, and private labels are, of course, playing a big strategy.
Yeah. So, as I've said, Nykaa in both businesses, beauty and fashion, is first and foremost a multi-brand retailer. And that's because we really believe Indian women want choice. And the value we are trying to bring is to bring all that choice together. Private label obviously is a supplementary strategy that may come about once we identify some gaps in the market where we think we can plug in with a private label strategy play.
So because I'm standing here, folks, I'm just going to pick this up because I find it so interesting. This is Masaba by Nykaa branding. Now, Masaba, of course, very famous fashion designer, and you're doing branding for cosmetics with her, and it fits in so well with both the businesses that you have. Was that the plan?
So honestly, it was not done keeping in mind both businesses. This was a collaboration. Yeah, this was a collaboration between our private label beauty cosmetics team and Masaba. I think she's a perfect fit for Nykaa as a whole, both beauty and fashion, because I think as a woman she really stands for so many of the values we try to stand for, which is independence, confidence, a very ambitious, young, talented woman.
But having said that, you know, in the West, we have seen this entire method of licensing, where you get celebrities, sports stars, Hollywood stars who go into licensing, whether it's perfumes or clothing lines and all of that. Do you think India could be headed down the same way?
I definitely think so. And
that's something Nykaa would be interested in.
Yeah, I think you are going to see in the next year or so, you know, we are starting to tie up with more and more celebrities, influencers. You see it with our Janvi Kapoor collaboration. You see it with, you know, the Masaba line. And there's another very exciting one coming up in a couple months, which I can't reveal. But
fashion designer, sports star, Bollywood, musician, influencer.
Yeah, I think we're going to leave that one as a surprise.
I tried. I really tried that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, Adwaita, we are with you. You're the part of I know you're doing fashion more, but simply because we are in the offline, in the store of the cosmetics. Any interesting trends that you've noticed? Like, what are the hot sellers these days? What are the trends that you've noticed in the cosmetics business?
Yeah. So I feel like, you know, slightly more larger scale, we've seen some interesting trends in cosmetics over the last year or two. The first is the uprise of, you know, the luxury category. So you're currently standing in a luxe store. And so here we play with luxe brands and prestige brands. And I think the company has seen this portfolio growing probably the fastest, and it now accounts for about 15% of our overall sales.
Okay.
So you see the Indian woman starting to spend more on beauty. Another very interesting trend is you see the contribution of makeup, which is by far the largest part of our business, but it is starting, you know, skincare is actually starting to catch up. So even globally, you see a big wave where skincare is becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And I think the skincare popularity is really being driven by K-beauty. So that's Korean beauty, the masks, etc. I think it's made skincare far more accessible and very exciting. So those are the two trends we see right now.
Okay, so and having said that, now I want to ask you the business side now.
Yeah.
Are you profitable?
We are EBITDA positive.
You're EBITDA positive?
Yes.
And any IPO plans? You know, your mother ruled the Lal Street. She's done some of the most famous IPOs that are out there. So I'm sure she's got big plans for Nykaa on that front.
Yeah, I think it may be in the future, but we're really not thinking of it exactly at this moment.
And you know, you've got some very marquee investors too.
Yeah.
So do you want to take us to some of them, or are any of them pressing for exit?
You know, frankly, we've been blessed with a very supportive set of investors, both the family offices who have supported us sort of from day one, who have become great mentors and you know, investors in both a personal and professional relationship, and now some of the bigger funds like TPG and Lighthouse, etc., who've come on board. I think we are blessed to have investors who truly believe in the team and believe in the entrepreneurial mission that we're trying to solve.
And this entire mix of online and offline, how is that panned out?
Yeah.
Everything has to be omni-channel now, you think?
I think omni-channel is definitely the future. You know, when we started the offline business, today we have 45 stores. All of those 45 have pretty much opened in the last 2 years. A lot of people were like, why are you opening offline stores? You know, the return on capital is so much weaker. But we today are very convinced that offline was an absolutely essential play. And really the vision is even to take it to about 100 stores in the next year or so.
Okay.
Year and a half. Why? I mean, I think the Indian woman demands both an online and offline experience when it comes to makeup. When we interviewed our customers, the first and foremost thing that everyone kept asking for is, can you open stores? We want to try the product.
Yeah.
And you know, even from just a defensibility perspective, I think you can't just own the online space. You have to own the offline space as well to make sure that no other, you know, no one else can displace you in beauty as a whole.
So are these 100 stores, are all of them mainly going to be in the big cities? Are you also looking at the smaller cities?
We have a pretty healthy mix right now of our stores between metros and non-metros. And interestingly enough, I mean, I don't think it's surprising. I think it's almost expected today that our non-metro stores are actually some of our top performing stores. So we have stores in, you know, our Ahmedabad store performs absolutely incredibly. Bhubaneswar performs very well. Chandigarh, Ludhiana, Amritsar, these are all very, very strong stores for us. And I think, you know, the reason is obvious. I think a lot of those cities don't have as many options than some of the metros.
Are they the more profitable as well? Because I would imagine the rent there is lower. The sales are perhaps higher, more footfalls.
Yeah, I think you could say by and large they're more profitable, but you'd be surprised that rent is quite high in some of these non-metro cities as well.
Is that the big problem that you've also got? Just the rent, it's so unreasonable, right?
The rent is really high, but I think that's the beauty of doing a multi-brand store format, is that I think your sales potential can also be significantly higher than being a single brand format.
You said you're the largest at the moment. Who's your closest competitor?
I think, we admire a lot of companies for what they do. I'm personally a huge fan of Sephora, both in India and globally. They really make women excited about beauty. I'm really inspired by companies like Amazon, Flipkart. I think logistically they're very strong as well. So we don't think of them as competition, we think of them more as inspiration, companies who do things well.
What about fashion? If I could ask you what the growth plans for fashion is concerned.
Yeah. So it's year one. I mean, it's barely
Yeah.
been 7-8 months since I've started looking at this part of the business. I'm insanely excited about fashion. I think there's really an interesting business to build here. There has to be a place where Indian women are excited to shop online, and I'm hoping we can create that.
So that's not going to be omni-channel?
At least year one, year two, we're sort of focused on online, but I definitely think there will be an ability to do some offline stores. It's not in our 1 to 2 year roadmap though.
So again, this is going to be where you're going to look at a combination of what? Indian brands, foreign brands, create your own brands for the fashion business?
Absolutely. I think with all things in Nykaa, we really believe in breadth and giving the consumers the choice. So Indian, homegrown, international, Western, jewelry, accessories, bags, athleisure, footwear, expensive, not very expensive, we want to do it all. And that really comes from this insight that women today shop in all sorts of ways. You might, wear something, 50 rupee kajal, but pair up with a 5,000 rupee perfume. And similarly in clothing, I think women need that breadth and expanse of choice.
Okay, and how has the year one been? If I could ask you that, how have the sales been? How has it been encouraging?
It's been super encouraging. I think, from a sales number, obviously it's such a low base, we're seeing very good growth. But I think more than just the numbers, when we talk to industry participants, so that's the brands that we want to sell, they are so excited about the idea of a new fashion retailer coming into the mix and trying to do something interesting.
I have to ask you this one question. Why is it that your mom and you are only looking at the woman consumer?
Yeah.
Why not the man? There's so many articles now that men are obsessed with their looks, they're obsessed with their skin. I read this fabulous article where maybe the makeup for men is going to take off.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm glad you asked. Now it's time for a shameless plug. We've actually started NykaMan.com.
Okay.
And it's a separate app called Nykaa Man where you can shop for all your grooming needs. And precisely because we recognize that men are absolutely a fantastic opportunity, and so we're hoping.
How has that been? How old is it?
It's again within the last 6-7 months.
Okay.
So it's a pretty new initiative, but again very promising results. Frankly, a lot of men were already buying on the website, so being able to pull them into their own experience is something that should be a very logical fit.
I also wanted to ask you a little bit about this entire trend we're seeing towards hyper-localism. You're also seeing the internet become a great leveler.
Yeah.
Look at Bulbul, look at SimSim, look at the various apps that you also now have where you can learn various things and how to look glamorous, etc. How important is that for Nykaa? I know you already have it, but how important is it?
You mean the content side of it, or
the content side? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, content. We like to say content was our differentiator, and it's where we put in a disproportionate amount of resources, both in beauty and in fashion. I think everything starts with content, creating the right content, inspiring your consumer. You have to be able to bring that to the table to differentiate yourself. Otherwise, a lot of other companies can sell the same products we do.
So how will you do that in fashion? Like in cosmetics, I can understand that because you have to teach how to use the cosmetics. You have to say that why this kajal or this nail polish is better than this one. How will you do that for fashion?
I think the same sort of story exists. Advising a woman on what she should wear for her work interview, advising someone on how to dress during your maternity time, how to pair this black dress with what kind of shoes and what kind of clutch. Informing them about sustainable fashion and why it's such a big trend, helping them understand the latest designers. So I think there's a ton of education, and I think the country hasn't seen it till today, but there's a need for it.
And you want to expand, whether it's a Nykaa Man or Nykaa Fashion and all these plans that you've got at a time when the larger economy is in the grips of a slowdown. FMCG companies are showing that they are not recession proof. And here you've got a great startup like Nykaa, which has full plans for expansion. How am I supposed to juxtapose all of that together?
I think, frankly, we do like to think that we're creating markets and creating demand through our content, through that inspiration. So we like to think that we're not competing for that same pool of demand, but really creating that new demand.
And can I ask you from the business and expansion point of view, what we can expect going forward? You said you don't want to talk about the IPO, but the fashion business must be guzzling cash. The Nykaa Man must be guzzling cash.
So we just completed a round, with TPG. So we do have enough capital with us, and really that is kind of funding our store expansion plans, our capex requirements across the company, and our fashion plans. So I mean, in a nutshell, what can you expect? You can expect fashion. You can expect Nykaa Man. We're starting a B2B business called Nykaa Pro.
Okay.
You can expect the
What
beauty.
is that about?
So it's basically getting our salons and professional buyers of beauty products, selling to them and getting it to them at bulk rates and better prices.
Would you ever look at salons as well?
I think not right now. It's something, to be honest, we did think about and did discuss, but I think it's, we'd rather kind of focus on some of the initiatives we're currently taking on.
Before I take a commercial break, do you have a favorite store?
I actually love this store.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think...
so we're coming from the New Delhi Nykaa store in Chanakyapuri.
Yeah, I think this was our flagship store. We had a better budget to build this store, and so we've really been able to bring the brand alive. And if the camera is able to get a shot of the store, I think people will see that.
And do you have a favorite when it comes to the Nykaa label?
I absolutely do. So it's actually this matte liquid lipstick, and it's called Bombay, named after the city I'm from.
From the city you're from. And what has been the best seller on Nykaa.com since you started?
Yeah.
Do you know that?
I don't know, like, since I've started, we always know what's kind of selling well now, but I would say it's probably the maybe a Maybelline Colossal Kajal, or maybe a Lakme liner. It's hard to say what's really been the best overall.
And with that, folks, we're going to take a short commercial break. We've talked about Nykaa, but we're going to have Adwaita Nayar still with us on Startup Central because we've got a special masterclass planned with her. Stay tuned.